January 31st, 2016. The Clipper Round the World yacht race is in full flow through the Western Pacific. On its fifth leg from Australia to Vietnam, they come across a disconcerting sight.
They find a stricken vessel with a broken mast.
There's a code of the sea that says you don't leave your fellow mariner in peril.
They went over to see if the vessel was in distress. Nobody came out.
The ocean's always moving, and so it's impossible for them to really pull up alongside each other. So it was necessary for the crew of the race boat to pull up nearby and send someone to swim across. What he found was horrific.
A dead sailor slumped over his charts, seemingly frozen in time.
I can't imagine climbing aboard a vessel to offer assistance and finding a dead person on board. It must have been horrifying.
How long has he been sitting there dead? How did he die? Was it foul play? Was he injured?
One thing that's really eerie is that you look at the way that he's frozen the position. He's slumped over the table.
There's no sign of a struggle or injury, and certain obvious clues that would be available on land are missing.
Often the first things to arrive at a dead body will be flies, and their maggots can actually give us a timeline for how long that body's been dead. But in this case, we don't have that. Out in the middle of the ocean, there aren't any flies.
The race crew called the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard said they'll take care of the issue. Basically, race on, we've got this.
The racing yacht continues on her way, but no one comes to deal with the stricken vessel. Fast forward 26 days, 600 miles away near the Philippines. A group of fishermen come across the very same boat.
The gentleman who was in it, who expired, was still in his same position.
It's unbelievable that he was drifting for so long and so far. How he wasn't picked up by the authorities, no one knows.
And something bizarre has happened to him since he was last seen.
This is where the mystery really begins, because they find him at the table, slumped over, but he looks like a mummy.
He was literally mummified, basically turned to leather.
What happened here? What happened to the captain? What happened to the vessel?
The mummified sailor is brought ashore, and the local police start searching for clues. A few new pieces of information come to light.
This yachtsman was very, very experienced. He'd gone all over the world. He'd been sailing from 2008 almost continuously, first with his wife and then on his own.
The autopsy concludes that the most likely cause of death was a heart attack. But it can't explain how the body has completely dried out, just 3 feet from a vast expanse of water.
The fact that he was found in this sort of mummified state is a pretty curious thing. When we think of mummification, we of course think of Egypt.
Ceremonial mummification was practiced in Egypt and parts of America and Asia for thousands of years. To prepare a dead body for the afterlife, internal organs and all liquid were removed to prevent rotting and aid preservation.
So by removing a lot of these internal organs, you're also removing the moisture. That was one of the ways that they tried to slow down the decomposition process and promote the mummification.
This process took months and involved surgery, elaborate ritual, and a wide range of minerals and ointments. And it was carried out in the driest places on the planet. So what miracle created this modern-day mummy in the middle of the ocean in just 26 days?
This hasn't been observed before, so it's something quite new and quite mysterious. What kind of conditions must have been present on this vessel in order for him to become mummified?
On land, natural mummification can occur in extremely cold or arid environments, or when a body is deprived of oxygen. Famous examples have been found around the globe.
There's the Iceman, basically preserved within the ice.
For over 5,000 years, Otzi the Iceman lay in snow and ice in the Tyrol Mountains of Italy, where his body slowly dehydrated.
Or there's people who sink down into bogs.
The Tolland man was found buried in peat near Silkeborg in Denmark, his head startlingly well preserved after more than 2,000 years in an oxygen-deprived bog. But few examples exist of mummification happening naturally when surrounded by the ocean.
There's sort of a preservation process happening. So you need to have a situation where insects and things that you normally have on land that would promote decomposition aren't actually there.
But there are other, much more powerful factors at play.
The mummification process here was likely a combination of the heat and the wind.
We know that the yacht would have been quite warm, and we also know that there was a hatch left open and there would have been a bit of a breeze coming through the ship.
If you have a contained space that's being heated up by the sun, that can become incredibly hot and powerful, with air continually flowing through, warming up, and dehydrating this body over time.
In addition to heat and wind, experts speculate that another element might be a factor, and it's something found in abundance in the sea.
The Egyptians would use natron, which was a form of salt that would be used to preserve the body.
He was in a salty environment. If you're bathing, usually you're bathing with salt. So it's entirely possible that he had salt on his skin.
And perhaps the sea salt behaved like the natron in this case.
But for their mummification process, the ancient Egyptians would cover the corpse with large quantities of natron. So, could a much smaller quantity of sea salt have had the same effect? And one other vital question still remains. How could this transformation happen in just 26 days, less than half the time it took the ancient Egyptians?
In just the right conditions, mummification can happen quite quickly. It's something that they refer to as precocious mummification.
Precocious mummification has been observed to occur in confined spaces and specific microclimates.
Maybe it was a perfect storm of conditions.
But exactly how a process that naturally can take a year and with assistance several months can happen in weeks and at sea is still unclear.